Greetings. I thought we'll have another little intermission between the third and fourth songs of the quartet of TOYAH songs. So before we get to Brave New World, I wish to reiterate by switching to a couple of tracks on a Linkin Park album, the opening two tracks of 1,000 Suns. That is the Requiem and The Radiance. I'm going to put a very effective video. It's interesting. Let me just get my notes here. If we refer back to the lyrics of the Packt, where it says silence, cold icy air, black manic stare. Keep that in mind when you watch Robert Oppenheimer giving that famous commentary where he says, "We knew the world would not be the same." And then he talks about two people laughed, two people cried, most were silent. There is a big clue in that. Two expressed as singular ones would give you the 1111 or a 4, which is a door. What is actually being represented there? If we turn to the song lyrics in the Requiem, the opening track, it goes, "God save us every one while we burn in the fires of 1,000 suns, for the sins of our hands, the sins of our tongue, the sins of our fathers, the sins of the young." Excuse me. So, the sins of our hands, the sins of our tongue, it's how we conduct ourselves in relationship to others, the things we say, and by extension, the actual thoughts that are negative towards other people. The sins of our fathers is when you still have those unresolved childhood issues, the negative system programming that your parents would have had, which if you don't address in yourself, you will pass on it and it will become the sins of the young. It's expressed in scriptures as the, I think it's the generational sins of mankind. What is interesting with that explosion, you notice how it looks like a brain, and in this particular video I'm going to put as a link in the description in the box below the video. If you just click on more, you'll find it, and all the other details, how to contact me directly and so on. So let's give you a breakdown. Robert means shining or bright. Oppenheimer basically means open-hearted. Now what is being displayed there is the extremes of, if humanity carries on the path it goes, this having to defend or attack something else that has a different viewpoint. Look at the extreme that goes to, but see how it also causes a kind of reset. It replicates what is going to happen anyway. No one has actually mentioned this so far, but Junus, do you not consider that that is actually quite close to Janus? I'll come on to that towards the end of this video. So unless we break pattern and we address those unresolved issues inside ourselves, face them, it's no good blaming anybody else. Don't blame your parents. They're innocent. They didn't know. They were just following on. But for whatever reason, maybe their souls are not so developed. Maybe it's to do with the time that we are in in the sense of linear time in the year 2024, for example. Because certainly the last 23, 24 years or so, it's interesting, 23, think of 23 chromosomes. As it is, you've only got half the story, which is his story, which hides the mystery, which is the my story. And it's to do with these vowel shifts, these vowels to owl. So Janus becomes Jesus. But have we got an Iesa? Yes, the Irish church. That's where it came from. That's what it was hijacked from. So you've had the A, the E, the I. The OHS is on his or her Majesty's service. So that leaves U, which is Junus. The Junus is the onus, the you and us. That's all of us. By taking personal responsibility, by breaking pattern. And it also mentions, Robert Oppenheimer says he's reminded of the Bhagavad Gita, where Vishnu tries to persuade the prince to do his duty. The duty is the due tie that you have to untie. You're paying your dues, you could say. It is a direct energy. It's not a weapon, is it? It's a power of something very good to be able to penetrate to the deepest inner core of yourself, face yourself. So, as a personal testimony, I could transmute frustration and anger and then go and tackle a load of ramble. But I don't have to transmute what isn't there. I don't hold any anger. I don't hold any grudges. That part has very much died. That is the living death. I can look at all these stories, and that's all they are, stories. And I just find myself rolling my eyes. This is your Dead Sea Scrolls. You see it and you just roll your eyes. It's like, oh, another theatre show story. I'm not giving my energy to it. I've had a series of emails saying that we've been abandoned. Well, yes and no. It can feel like that way. Part of it is because anything that comes into this reality fully becomes into a physical form and has to have a physical form. So, but even in that, there is an unseen that materializes in the material. So it's quite possible that Junus may appear in a female form, which I would see as an angel in feeling. It could just be, well, not just, it will be a representation in a female form. Interesting, represent, like a sales rep, something that represents something. There's all the hot talk about reptilian. Well, tiles are something you lay, which creates, you could create, if you had black and white tiles, you could create a 64 square checkerboard out of them, for example. But consider behind that, if it is something that can only replicate and imitate and reproduce, notice it's all starting REP. It must therefore be based on something that was before it, because it's not an original idea and is reflected in that you have all these repeat stories being played out, these time loops. But Junus does share something with Janus. It's basically I suppose, a fifth incarnation, shall we say. And I can't help but what's come into my mind is about the end of the fifth age of the sun. Because Junus does have two faces like Janus. But the thing is, we're in a realm where everything is about reflection and about reflecting upon things, because it's all a rebound, it's all a bounce back. So the whole Robert Oppenheimer visual show is showing humanity something at an extreme polarity of death and violence, because it's been subject to that bounce back from the firmament. So the story has been flipped and swapped polarity. This is why this reality seems back to front, upside down, inside out, etc., etc. That is also reflected, and if you look up to the supposed heavens, as it were, it's just a reflection. It's the you inverse. The universe is you inverse. It is all within inside you. So where is Junus, for example? It is both outside and it is also inside. So I could say, well, this face is what Junus looks like. That's only one aspect for a start, but it wouldn't be done in that way. This is where it went wrong before. Things have been taken literal, and then they materialize in a literal play out of this spiritual history, this spiritual play, this great play. But though really it's wrong to call it his story, although it has been very much in favour of the patriarch, or would seem to be, at the expense of the matriarch. But that's reflected internally when the conscious mind, which is the divine masculine side, starts attacking the creative divine feminine side. Because it's outward, it's always projecting outwards. So this Junus, what face of Junus you actually see will depend on what you're radiating out. If you are radiating out fear, and bearing in mind these physical beings energetically contain something that is basically magnetism. So if you are projecting out fear, what would you expect to get reflected back? And probably at least 10 times worse. We can say 10, can't we? Because it would be a reference to Satan. This is the most important thing that you could ever do for yourself, is to find that balance within yourself to address all those deep-held issues. It does require digging deep. That is the one and only rabbit hole that you will get to the end of, because you will reach that point where you hit rock bottom and you say to yourself, enough is enough. I'm not having this anymore. You are beginning from that to start empowering yourself to taking back your true power that is in you all along. This whole taking the long way home of seeking externally into this realm of reflections, this realm of smoke and mirrors. Look at any rabbit hole, anything classed as a rabbit hole in the external, and there are far more than what are the accepted rabbit holes. That in itself is reflected on this earth. How many mining operations where it's been boring into the earth can you think of where those holes have ever been filled in? It's always been about take and take and take and extract and leave a glaring great hole, and you wonder why there's sinkholes. But they are reflecting the rabbit holes. You won't find an end. There's numerous ones out there. So that has become something that is shall we say, become literal and become material because it matters to enough people, mostly through fear of, I hope I'm not going to disappear in a sinkhole. When you see all these maps showing all the areas of how the UK would survive that, for example, looking at one of these pictures of where all these likely sinkholes are. But of course, it's another reflection of, are you supposed to take the fear from that is going to become so paralyzing? Or are you going to rise above it? Are you going to make the best of the time that you have? That is your true wealth. It is measured in time, because everything is subject to time in this reality. So consider these words very carefully. Consider the question very carefully. Which face of Janus or Junus do you wish to encounter? And consider also that you are going to be very central to determining what face of Junus you are going to see. Because it is all reflection. Ultimately, it is all a reflection of yourself. But of course, Junus, like all the descriptions of angels having 4 faces, is equally true. It is no different from what is expressed in the seasons. You have winter, and its opposite polarity is summer, and it's balanced by the fall and the spring, the 2 equinoxes. It's expressed as the 4 elements of fire, water, air, and earth. And Junus can draw on any of those, and it can be perceived and it can be experienced with an outcome of destruction. But equally, it can put before you something very beautiful. It's up to you if you want to have a desolate winter or whether you wish to have a beautiful summer in the future, as it were. You are the determining point in your life of what you are going to experience. Ask yourself what you wish to experience. Which of those polarities would you rather become a player on this world stage in? Right, so we'll go to A Brave New World in the next video, which will conclude those 4 songs by TOYAH. But of course there is far more to the story that is expressed in song lyrics, and I shall be looking at a few of those. One that came into my mind the other day, a song that I've never really paid that much attention to it, but I know of the song and it came into my mind. It's called Don't Fear the Reaper, and some very interesting lyrics in that song. So I'm going to say love to you all until the next video. So what are you waiting for? If you're struggling, then come and talk to me. I can help. We can play the inverse Titanic story. We can be on the ship, or the ship can come along that is not going to hit an iceberg, that is going to reach its destination and does have sufficient lifeboats to pull you out of that ice-cold water of fear and doubt and take you to a solid foundation, which is inside yourself ultimately. You'll know it because you will feel it. That is the only way you're ever going to know it, is to feel it, and that means going through the experience. But to go through the experience means having to face the shadow side first, the unpleasant parts. But if you can go the distance on that, and it's going to vary on time scale between each individual. It will depend on your individual circumstances, the life you've had, and so on. But ultimately, it is all down to you. And the most important thing about this experience between birth and death is you, to find the true you inside yourself. That is the whole purpose of a channel like this, to try and help you. And if you go back over the videos, you'll see the developments in the subjects I was talking about. And it's not been an overnight thing at all. It's taken a lifetime to get to this point. But inside, I feel virtually no stress, no worries. Yes, there are the presentations of the daily things, where's the next food coming from and so on, but these things have a way of just working out and unfolding beautifully in divine timing. It's getting over those fears and worries, because the presentation in the external will give you the reflection. It will give you the opposite. But it's seeing through beyond that reflection and transforming that internally, which will affect and interact with the interactive field around us and change the reality into something depending on what frequency that you're broadcasting out in energy, effectively. So love to you all until the next video.